Well, hello everyone. My name is Lynn Figurate from Riverside County Office of Education. Welcome to the session titled Writing Strategies in the STEM Classroom. So this is brought to you on behalf of our literacy initiative called Literacy by Fifth Grade, and so brought to you by Riverside County Office of Education. So we have quite a challenge for us in writing. We're asking kids to really come to the writing table and to really respond to all kinds of things. We ask them to look at prompts, we ask them to do performance assessments and performance tasks, and look at the things that we're asking them to do. They have to be proficient in focus and organization, some areas of language and elaboration of evidence, and also in conventions. But not only that, we have a challenge before us, don't we? Because we also have a different way that we're doing writing. So it used to be where we could ask kids to write about experiences that they have, and we can still do that, but primarily now in the age of Common Core, we've shifted to really reading text and using that text into their writing. So look at shift number 2, reading and writing, speaking grounded in evidence from text. So that word evidence is key in what we're trying to do now in writing in the 21st century. And so we have a challenge before us. And it's not as if it's any easier for our kids. The standards have gone up in terms of their expectation, and not just a little bit, exponentially. I'm going to use that word to describe really what we're asking our kids to do. It used to be in the 1997 standards that we ask a child in 3rd grade to produce one paragraph, and now we're asking 2nd graders at the very beginning of the year, at the end of Unit 1, to produce a multiple paragraph at that time. So you see, it's a daunting task. What is the answer to all this? Are we just magically going to be able to do this? Well, what we've got to do is we've got to put our heads together, and as always, the answer is in our unity. What we've got to do is we've got to embrace the notion of really having all of our grade levels working together so that we have continuity from TK to kinder to first to second and on, so that by the time that we're asking them a state test really what to do, we've done a tremendous service to them to help them. Now, our initiative, Literacy by 5, check this out. Literacy is the ability to read, write, listen, speak, and represent according to grade level standards. But what we recognize is that by 5th grade, they have to be able to draw on evidence from literary and informational texts to support analysis, reflection, and research. It's not that it's the first time that they're going to do that. In fact, many grade levels are going to ask kids to produce that evidence, and you can see here on the standards that at 4th grade, we introduce this concept to them formally. However, we know that in classrooms all before this, we're asking kids to produce evidence in their writing so that we really draw that out and we teach them. So by 5th grade, we want to see all of our students, I mean all, really having the ability to support analysis, reflection, and research in multiple content areas in the classroom. This is so vital in the STEM classroom, folks. So we really want to make sure that we're watching what's happening with our children. Now look at all of the predictors for writing success in our classrooms. There are many, many things that we've got to embrace, things that we have to attend to in our classrooms. Not only is it important to build capacity at our schools in each of these areas, we also have to make sure that the implementation is there, and then student outcomes. But just to get one of these is a challenge. I would recommend that you have an implementation focus at your school, and the implementation focus might just include a few things initially, and then we're going to broaden them out. Now, I recommend that whenever I'm doing trainings at districts, and I really provide those trainings all throughout Riverside County, I recommend that we do no more than 5 implementation pieces that we're looking at in a year. Now, we may teach I don't know, 30 to 50 things, but we really only want implementation around 5 pieces. In fact, we're taking that data and really watching to see if they're working. Today, I'm going to show you 2 of those strategies, and you might say, hey, Lynn, can you give me all 5? What are those things that you recommend? Yes, contact me. I would love to come to your school. I'd love to come to your district and talk with you about an implementation focus that's right for you. For today's purposes, I want to talk about 2 pieces that I think are very critical, and I hope that I sell you on the fact that in our classrooms, we want to make sure kids have both of these strategies. Particularly in our STEM classrooms, we want to make sure that we have both of these strategies. And they are having an organizational structure that's available to the kids every time we do a text type of writing. And the second one is a regular practice of a strategy known as name it, verb it, finish it. I'll talk about both of them. So first up, the organizational structure. You all know that the writing process is crucial to teach kids along the way. However, it's not important that we're tight on all of them throughout a school. It's not even that important that we're tight on all of them in a grade level. What you can see on each of these parts of the writing process, that you have loose in the pre-write, it's tight in the plan, it's loose in the draft with revision and editing, and it's loose in the final. In other words, how a teacher does the pre-write, the drafting and editing, the final, it's completely up to the teacher. I think we need to be loose on that, allow them the freedom, the creativity, bring their innovation to the table. But what we want to do is we want to be tight on that plan. What is the organizational structure? What is the informal outline that we're asking kids to produce in their writing? It's crucial because in that plan, it can move for us from TK all the way through 12th grade. Sure, it's going to add elements. We're going to perhaps put pieces in there for them to understand at the grade level that they have, but it is important that we give to them really something that is really conceptually understood, but it has continuity to it. And so we want to be tight on that plan. I'll talk a little bit about that now. So in that organizational structure by grade level, it'll look different. Look at the complete right of this. We have the second grade version of what we're going to perhaps do in informative explanatory writing. We introduce that text, we give the topic sentence, that main idea, we provide a couple of details, explain and give evidence of those, and have a concluding statement. As we move up to the upper grades, starting at about 4th grade, we're going to add that lead. We might do it in some 3rd grade classrooms, but we're going to introduce that text, that topic sentence, and a projected plan. So we add little by little, just like our California standards, we're going to add little by little in order for them to understand. Maybe more details, and this does not mean that we only do 3. This is to just understand conceptually what we're trying to do. But kids need that organizational structure, and they need it in the language of the prompts that we're putting in front of them, so that they know when it's talking about a detail, they know exactly, okay, oh, those are the yellows that we've been talking about. Highly recommend using that step up to writing colors so that we kids use that really as that scaffold to help them to know what goes where. We use it orally, we use it in writing, and we also use it in reading as well. Take a look at this one in the middle, one that we would use perhaps in the STEM classroom. So rather than doing that lead, we might have some kind of a science activity. We might do some kind of a science experiment. And so we put in there an I notice, I observe. Yes, it can change by the classroom and what you're going to do. We want to celebrate the fact that people have different ways of writing, but we want to be very clear with our students what goes where. And we want to do that at the outset. We want to model for them. We want to do it with them in the classroom so that they really understand what that looks like. It's also important from an ELD standpoint. Check this one out. You have this in your standard, your ELD standard 10, where it talks about paraphrasing the text. Look at that under expanding, that they're going to use complete sentences and keywords from notes or graphic organizers. This is an ELD connection that's way down in first grade. Many teachers that I've talked to say, well, now wait a minute, I don't think my kids are going to be able to write down just a few words and they represent whole sentences. But it is a standard that we have way down in first grade, and we want to make sure that kids have the language to be able to pull that off. And it is an organizational piece that helps them to have that in place. And you know, organization is the first thing that we have. Focus and organization, so important that kids have that. Now check this out. When we are introducing the text, and we're going to do that in every grade level, according to our standards, especially at standard number 1, opinion, it tells us the first thing that we do is to introduce the text or texts that we're going to be using in that particular piece of writing. Way down in TK and first, we're going to provide that topic, sentence, informative, explanatory, but guess what? Here is a strategy that we're going to use, a name it, verb it, finish it, and in order to introduce that topic or text, name it, verb it, finish it, even when we start to move up into the upper grades and on through middle school and high school, we continue to encourage kids to introduce that topic or the text, and guess what we use? Name it, verb it, finish it. I put this slide here so that you could see the order in which they're written by kids. The first thing is to introduce that topic of the text. It is not to write that lead, the attention getter, the hook, whatever you call that. Really, that happens at the end of writing that introduction, and for some, it's at the end of the entire piece of writing. So we want to make sure that for kids, that first sentence, they do not have to figure out, oh, what am I going to be writing? We know that many kids struggle because we want them to know exactly what goes where, but we want them to have a solid strategy that tells them what goes where and how do I begin. And so that first strategy is name it, verb it, finish it. Check out this standard in third grade. It tells us right in the standards. And by the way, go look at your standards. It's going to tell you this. Write opinion pieces on topic and text to supporting a point of view with reasons. Look at A. Introduce the topic or the text that they're writing about. That's the first thing. The second thing that you do is state the opinion. So the topic sentence, no matter what, is going to be the second sentence. The first thing that we have to do, introduce those texts. And one strategy, one way to do that is name it, verb it, finish it. In fact, name it, verb it, finish it is going to help us in 2 different standards when we're talking about reading. Because one of the shifts that we have is really when we're talking about writing is that writing, reading, speaking, and listening, they all come together. So in the STEM classroom, we want to make sure they all come together. So in the reading piece, you can see here, look at standard number 2. We really have that determining the main idea, or over on the left-hand side for the reading under literature, we have really getting that central idea or that central message or the lesson or the moral that we're talking about there. And then down, way down on 9, which moves up the DOK level from 1 and 2 all the way up now to DOK 3, we have that compare and contrast. And so now we're moving it to another level. And this is why the name it, verb it, finish it is going to work for us in not only one text, but multiple texts at the same time. If you're using name it, verb it, finish it now in your classroom, and I hope that you are, we've done lots of trainings. Most teachers that I've seen use name it, verb it, finish it with one piece of text. I'm going to encourage you today to really begin to move that up from standard 2 all the way up to standard 9 and really try to move it up that DOK level. And I'll show you today how to do that. All right, so that strategy that we're going to use for introduce the topic or the text, name it, verb it, finish it, that's the first one. We have also strategies that we can use, how to write that topic sentence, thesis statement, how to write that projected plan, how to write that lead, all of which we're not going to have time today because we only have 3 hours. How much time do we have, Henry? Oh, we only have 45 minutes. So we only have a little bit of time for us to get through all of this. But if you want more information on how we go through this, please contact me. I would love to come out and support you any way that I can. All right, so what is a name it, verb, finish it? Lynn, you keep talking about it, but you haven't told us what it is. All right, so a name it, verb, finish it has three parts, just like it implies. Name it, the verb it, and the finish it part. Name it has three parts. It's the type of text, the author, and the title. Actually, I took it out of order, didn't I? The type of text, the title, and the author. Those three are really important. Now remember, in Common Core standards, the type of text can be just about anything. Oh yeah, certainly it can be an article, but it also can be a science experiment. It could be a mathematical concept or a graph. In fact, graphs are wonderful to use. I'll model that for you today. We want to use everything at our disposal to really know how to teach the kids all different types of text. A picture, an illustration, a timeline, all of these are very important pieces of text. The second thing is the title. We want a working title. Now, if it doesn't have a working title, as a teacher, you can always give it a title. But if there's not one, don't sweat it. We just leave that part out, right? And we go with the type of text and then the author's name. And then finally, we want that author's name. If there's not an author's name, like many times, we have to teach the kids how to just write down the author. Or sometimes if it's an experiment, it might be the scientist. It really just depends on the circumstance. So we really want to teach them how to navigate their way when it's unknown during those times. We'll put a verb there, and we're going to give them a list of verbs that they can use that will be appropriate for their grade level. And the last piece, and certainly not the least, but the most difficult that we have would be the finish it. The finish it is the main idea, the theme, the moral. Back to standard number 2 of RI and RL, this is going to cover that. So where does reading and writing come together? Every time, folks, every time that you read with your kids, every time that you spend time on a graphic or some kind of a lesson or some kind of scientific activity, you're going to want to do a name it, verb, finish it, because you're going to want to help them to capture what? The main idea of what you are trying to get across in the classroom. This doesn't have to be an elementary thing, folks. This is a high school thing. This is a middle school thing. This goes all the way across in really what we're trying to do. So very important that we have these pieces. So name it, verb it, finish it. Is this an easy thing to do? Well, we have kids down in kindergarten that can navigate this just fine, and they learn how to do this orally. Oh, a lot of our kindergarten teachers say, oh, my kids will never be able to do this. Well, maybe not this year. It might take them until second grade, but we started with them, and there will be kids, I'll tell you, there will be kids in kindergarten that will be able to produce this, not only orally, but perhaps some kids even in writing during that time. We want to give them the opportunity, as soon as they get it, to be able to move forward in the writing. And here's the thing, folks, without continuity, we can never do well in what the standards are asking of us by third grade when they hit that state test. I know it's not about the state test, but it's really important that we give our kids, right, all the skills that they need. And isn't that a life skill for us to teach them how to do writing? I'll tell you, you'll feel really great even at the end of the day and in your life overall, just because you taught kids how to write. They'll come back year after year. You are the teacher that taught me how to write. And I've heard that so many times, and I'll tell you, I love it. It makes you feel like $1,000,000. And so that becomes very important. Name a verb, finish it. Okay, so in our classrooms, we're going to provide for them some anchor charts. Yes, anchor charts. It anchors them into the learning of what we're trying to get across. And one anchor chart that's very important is on that verb it part. We've got to give them some verbs. They're not just going to come up with verbs off the top of their head. We have to help them. You might put it in a notebook. You might put it right up on your wall in a pocket chart. You might put it on some kind of a chart like you see here that some teachers have done. However you do it, it's important the kids have those. And then we have to talk about each one of those words as vocabulary words because they need to understand how they're in use. Otherwise, kids are just going to pull them off of a list, right? And we don't want that, just to pull any word off of there. They need to understand its usage, and that becomes really important. Okay, so why name it, verb, finish it? Lynn, you keep talking about that. Couldn't we use really any strategy to introduce a text? The answer to that is yes, we absolutely can. It is not just the fact that we're using name it, verb it, finish it. It's just a really, really great strategy. And we want to thank Step Up to Writing for really bringing this to us. Maureen Almond, you're a genius for coming up with this particular strategy to help us. So why is it so important? Why is it great? Well, number one, it builds confidence with kids. It tells them what to write first. It has continuity, TK through 12th grade. It will move from grade level to grade level. Oh, sure, it's going to get more challenging. We're going to put more pieces in it. There'll be more text that we have in there, but it's really going to serve to help us along the way. It's going to be used in a range of writing. We'll use it in a single paragraph. We'll use it in multiple paragraphs. We'll use it in just off-the-cuff writing. Sometimes it'll just be that one sentence. You just want to capture the main idea of what we were trying to do that in that STEM activity, and that is it. Sometimes you're just doing it orally, and you want them to frame that in the form of a name it, verb it, finish it. Beautiful. We also can use it across the curriculum in all of our STEAM activities. That's going to be real important. In history and social studies and PE and all along the way. In music, all different kinds of ways that we can use this. And it's going to cover a multitude of standards. And in fact, the most important one, I think, is really that main idea. I think that you would agree that many children struggle with capturing the main idea. But when they have a frame of where to put that, that in part helps them. It's like, I know I'm looking for that main idea, but we have to give them the, how to learn how to really pull that main idea. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. And it has a very high effect size as well while we're doing this. All right, so check this out. When we're trying to find the main idea of an article, where do we look? What do we teach kids in order to find that? So that's that reading piece that's so vital to us. Remember how I told you the colors really matter? You see that I've highlighted for you where that main idea is in the article, but we don't just do that with kids, right? We talk with them. Hey, which one is the main idea? This first sentence that most kites are made out of paper or plastic, or is it the second one that over time kites all over the world, right, are used for scientific studies, transportation, entertainment? Which one is it? And so kids will take a crack at it. They'll guess, well, it's the first one. Oh, maybe it's always the last one. It's not always anything. We have to do what? We have to confirm it in the body paragraphs. We also have to look in that conclusion. I'm sorry, this is only one page of it, but it is important that we go through and we teach them how to find the main idea. But your colors will help you in finding that. So in this particular one, we have over time, kites became popular in other places, including the United States, Europe, Australia, for scientific studies, transportation, entertainment. So that name it, verb it, finish it sounds something like this. In the article, kiting, well, there's no author's name, so what do we say? The author, right, explains that over time, kites have been used for science, travel, and fun. So we have a simple way of really helping them to really get that down. And we want kids to have daily opportunities to really cite that main idea. So we can use this across the curriculum. Here we have in math, check this out. So how would we do a name it, verb it, finish it in math? Now, if we were in a full grade level and with all of your third grade teachers perhaps at your district, and we're all gathered together, we'd brainstorm this, right? And really talk about this. Okay, what type of text is this? Okay, it's a graph. And then what's the title of this? Pizza sales. Who is the author of this? We wouldn't say the author. We might say the owner of the pizza shop, whatever it is that happens to be on there. And then what's the main idea of this, right? And so shows, right, graphically, that the number or the sales in a week of pepperoni and cheese pizzas. So, or the number of cheese and pepperoni pizzas that are sold in a week. So we want to help kids to not only answer questions like, which 2 days had the most sales in cheese pizzas, and then how much is that combined? We want them to understand, what does the graph mean? And a name it, verb it, finish it will help us to conceptually understand what's going on with the graph, and that becomes important for us. We can also use this in science. Imagine that. So, right, this is a second grade phenomenon that we have for our kids. That right in the, what is this? Oh yeah, this is a map. And it doesn't have a title, but the cartographer shows the flow of water from the Central Valley through the Carquinez Strait, out through the bay, and into the ocean. A solid second grade standard that we're going to have. Very good. All right, so we want to make sure that kids understand how to do that with one piece of text. We want them to be able to do this not only with one piece of text, but we also want them to go across the curriculum. But the next piece that we want to do is help them with multiple texts. So look at this particular article. We're not going to read all of this, but I've written down for you the main idea, or the name it, verb, and finish it, of this one. And then I've done the second one. So let's say that in a DBQ, you had 3 DBQs that you had to read, and then at the end of those 3 DBQs, you had to write a paper on all of that information. So we have to find a way to combine all of that. So here it is. What do you do when you have multiple sources and you're going to do a name it, verb it, finish it? All right, so in the text, and then we're going to cite all of those sources and the author, and then the authors offer, right, perspectives to a few recent accounts of deliberate efforts to exterminate people, groups of people in Rwanda and Bosnia. So we want to combine all of those pieces in order to introduce those texts. So again, we want to do lots of work with your grade levels on how to do that according to your grade level. And by the way, this is a DBQ that I think is in 6th grade, maybe it's in 7th grade. So we have them at the lower grades, we have them in the upper grades. We encourage you really to use them according to your grade level. Then what we want to do is spend some time in deliberate practice. We've got to practice, 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 because you know as well as I do, the kids are not going to be able to remember this the first time we do it. Oh, I'm sorry. A few of the kids will be able to do this after the first time that we do this. But for the most part, we have kids that really will not be able to get this unless we deliberately practice. And even kids that are advanced learners, if we do it one time, they won't remember it and it won't stick. We want it to stick. So look at this in this kindergarten classroom, a wonderful resource that they have in their curriculum. Every day they have another article that they're going to read, and they have an opportunity, look at this, to write their name and verb and finish it. Just a wonderful resource for them to be able to do this. In some classrooms, they actually put that frame down, and then they each day is another opportunity for them to follow that frame and to really do name it, verb, and finish it. I had the opportunity this week to sub in a 4th grade classroom. They were doing an art lesson, and then at the end of that, I said, okay, let's do a name it, verb, and finish on that. We went into ELA, and then we jumped into their shared read and talked about that one. And then we jumped into math, and then we talked about that word problem. It's so difficult for them to use those strategies to really solve that problem, and then to really critique each other's answers on how to do that. So we really want to use name it, verb, and finish it, I think, as a way to help us to move across that curriculum. But deliberate practice, very important, easy throughout a day to get several of those down. Some teachers like to put that in charts. Some of them like to have that in in different ways in the classroom. They'll put it in some kind of a journal. Some teachers like to just put that up on their whiteboard as that frame. Any of that's really important. Robert Marzano said in his book, Classroom Instruction That Works, we've got to have 24 practice sessions in order to get 80% learning. This is really important for us, folks. We've got to make sure that our kids have enough practice in order for it to stick. And if it's not sticking with them, we simply have to question ourselves, hey, have we done enough of this? Well, Lynn, I taught it to my kids, and I spent 2 weeks of giving them deliberate practice. That's right. So how many days would be in 2 weeks? 8 days, right? Because everybody knows you don't teach on Fridays. Just kidding. So, right, we have 10 days for 2 weeks. Well, what does that amount to, right? 61% learning? No, no one's going to pass that with that kind of deliberate practice. We have to keep going. Check this out though. In our increase in learning, at the very beginning, it feels like we're doing a great job of teaching our kids. The learning is going up. We have about a quarter of the kids after one practice session. Woohoo! You don't even know what kind of teacher I am. A bunch of kids were getting this. And what about the next day? I got more kids that did this. What about after that? But look what happens. Over time, it appears that really we're not getting those same increases. In fact, many teachers around here, when it's about 1% of learning, you know what? They say, the kids who get it, and the kids that don't, won't. Please don't do that. So many of our kids are, right, magically one day they're going to get it, and you're going to wonder how. It was your reinforcement, but we don't know what that day is. I just have to tell you, one kid in my classroom, Josue, third grade classroom, he was looking at me and looking at me and looking at me day in and day out. And one day he produced a name, verb, finish it. And I said, Josue, why today? And he was smiling, and all the kids at the table were smiling. And I was like, and I was thinking, maybe he cheated. And okay, did any of you help Josue? No. You couldn't have done this at home. I just gave this to you. How are you able to do this? I've just been doing what you've been telling us, Mr. Figurate. Oh man, rock on. That's what we want. But I could not have predicted when that was going to happen. That's the really important part. Deliberate practice is an essential piece of what we do in education. You all know that. All right, so out of those two pieces of implementation and the strategies that we talked about, organizational structure and regular practice of name it, verb, finish it, highly encourage you in your STEM classrooms to really put those pieces together for your kids and to help them to really have strategies that they can hang on to. I think that they're absolutely foundational in what we're doing. Now, if you'd like to contact me, we can send out a team. You know what, Lynn? I'd rather have somebody else present this. We have other people. Yami Shimojo will be doing this in no time. So we want to make sure that we support you in any way that you have in your endeavors in writing. So please contact me. Love to hear from you. I hope that you've had a great experience at StepCon 21. And thank you so much for your participation. And we hope to see you soon. Take care. All right.